In the lush Algonquin forests of Canada, a heavily pregnant female lynx lived quietly and alone. In the last days of her pregnancy, she had become weak and could hardly hunt anymore. Her big belly made it hard for her to move, and her tired eyes stared at the falling rain. Because she was so hungry, the lynx crawled dangerously across a path, looking for any leftover food. But the mud was so thick that she collapsed beside the road, trembling and crying out without success. It was a forest road that almost no one used, especially not on rainy days like this. The lynx breathed heavily, her eyes half closed, as if she had accepted her sad fate. Just then, the sound of an engine echoed. Far away, a jeep was coming. The scared lynx tried to cry out again, her eyes showing a tiny spark of hope. The car stopped. The door opened, and an old man with a white beard stepped out and slowly walked toward her. He knelt beside the lynx, gently placed his hand on her head, and patted her softly. The man was Arthur Whitmore, a retired doctor who lived alone in a small wooden cabin at the edge of the forest. When he saw the lynx's large belly, he knew she urgently needed help. Arthur quickly picked her up and laid her on the back seat of his car. The lynx was so weak that she didn't fight back. She just breathed lightly and closed her eyes. Arthur drove through the rain to a small animal clinic in the nearby town of Whitney. The doctors were shocked when they saw a pregnant lynx brought in during the rain. They usually only treat dogs and cats, and had never seen such a serious case before. But when they saw the pleading look in the old man's eyes, they decided to help. They placed the lynx on an examination table under bright white lights. Her fur was muddy. A young vet put a stethoscope on her belly and listened carefully. He frowned and said, "She's having contractions. The babies will probably be born in a few hours." They gave the lynx fluids through an IV to help her gain strength. A female doctor gently cleaned the dried mud from her soft fur. The lynx opened her eyes and looked around. She was no longer afraid, just tired and weak. They gave her an injection in her back leg to help with the birth. Everyone waited quietly and nervously, watching for any signs of movement. After 2 hours, the first labor pains began. The lynx twitched and moved slightly as the contractions started. Arthur stood beside the lynx, his hands on the table, never taking his eyes off the wild mother. 3 doctors worked calmly together, carefully watching the heart and breathing monitors. The lynx stretched out, panting, and her claws scratched the table. Then the first baby lynx was born under the warm lights of the operating room. It let out a tiny cry. Everyone sighed with relief, and Arthur gave a small smile. The baby was dried off and placed next to its mother to feel her warmth. Then came the second, third, and finally the 4th baby, each birth bringing tears of joy. The mother lynx was very tired, but her eyes lit up as she looked at her babies. The whole room went silent, feeling the magic of new life. The doctors decided to keep the lynx family for 2 more days to help them recover. Arthur stayed close by to care for them and brought fresh food every morning. He stood at the glass door, watching the babies as they reached out to nurse. The mother lynx slowly started to recover. Her body felt lighter, and her eyes became bright again. The doctor stitched a small tear and did one last checkup before letting her go. They took a photo of this rare moment to remember it forever. Arthur gently carried the mother lynx, while the doctors placed the babies in a soft basket. They drove back to the green forest, where wildlife continued as usual. That day, the sun shone softly and the mist slowly cleared, making the air feel fresh and clean. The forest path looked like a welcome mat for someone returning home. Arthur set the mother lynx down and opened the basket so the 4 babies could run to her. She licked each one gently and wagged her tail as if she knew it was time to go home. Arthur and the doctor stood quietly, saying nothing, just smiling with joy. The mother lynx turned her head and looked at them with thankful eyes, then led her babies deep into the forest. Their last steps disappeared among the trees, leaving behind a warm feeling in the heart. Arthur stood in the middle of the path for a long time, as if he had just said goodbye to something very special. The Algonquin forest now held a sacred secret deep within the wilderness. The doctor shook Arthur's hand and said, "Thank you for believing in us." This was a miracle. Arthur returned to his old cabin, where he lived simply and peacefully in nature. Even though he had said goodbye to the lynx, he felt a strange warmth inside. He cleaned the room and wiped the mud off his car, as if trying to keep a memory alive. He looked out the window into the forest, hoping to see her again someday. Life slowly went back to normal, but the memory of the lynx stayed in his heart. He hung a photo of the lynx family near the fireplace, a symbol of strong life. 2 months later, on a misty morning, Arthur sat at his usual wooden table drinking coffee. Suddenly, he heard a strange scratching sound on the wood outside the window. He turned around and froze. The mother lynx and her 4 babies were standing there looking at him. It was them, no doubt, the family he had saved. The mother lynx looked at Arthur with kind, not fearful eyes. The baby lynxes ran around on the porch, jumping and playing like they were visiting an old friend. Arthur slowly opened the door, stepped outside and sat down, his hands shaking with emotion. The mother lynx came closer, bowed her head, and gently rubbed against his legs to say thank you. One of the babies climbed onto his lap, and its innocent eyes made Arthur smile through his tears. Arthur went to the fridge and got some fresh meat to share with them. The baby lynxes sat in a row, waiting politely for dinner like little kittens. He grabbed a broom and swept the porch clean to make their first visit perfect. The mother lynx sat next to him with calm eyes. She was no longer wild like before. In the days that followed, the lynx family often came to visit for a while, and then left again. They came like a breeze, stayed like a cloud, but always brought happiness. Arthur started writing in a journal about his special moments with them. He even gave each baby a name based on their fur color and personality. Ash, Maple, Rust, and Flick. They were like little pieces of the forest, full of life. Arthur no longer felt lonely in his old age. Every time he heard the sound of claws on wood, his heart would skip a beat, like a family member was visiting. The story of Arthur and his lynx family spread through the region like a beautiful legend. People started calling him the Forest Keeper, the man with a heart as soft as moss. Arthur spent the rest of his days living peacefully in the wilderness, with wild friends from the deep forest. Every evening he waited for them, and in the golden light of the sunset, he would see the familiar shape of the lynx. Dear friend, thank you for taking the time to watch the whole video. Don't forget to like the channel and subscribe to support us. See you next time.